Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Chantel Hampton. I'm your host for tonight. Thank you for all of those that came out and decided to join us. I'm thrilled for you all to be here. Real quick, before we get started, just the rules for tonight for the Zoom. Be sure to stay muted as I'm recording, and we're going to send this out as a replay to people that wanted to join but could not make it. So please be sure to stay muted. Type your questions, if any, in the chat box. And you can open that up and we'll be monitoring the chat as we go through the session. And then at the end, you're going to be asked to fill out a survey for the meeting, a survey as well as kind of a sign up if you do decide to set up a time to talk with our special guest tonight. So I will post that in the chat. So just keep an eye on the chat. And then, like I said, if you have any questions, be sure to put them in the chat. All right, our agenda is pretty simple for tonight. I'm going to explain to you what the Brave Evolution is. It's a whole movement slash ministry, and I feel like it's a part of my calling and mission. So I'll give you a little bit of background about what that is, and then I'll introduce our special guest, and then we're going to have a short Q&A if you have any questions specifically for Sean, but I'll let you ask those, as I said, at the end via chat. All right. So what is the Brave Evolution? For those that don't know and have never heard of it, and this is your first time joining me, the Brave Evolution is the courageous journey of self-acceptance and contentment with where you are and the process of full growth into all you were designed to be. The Brave Evolution is the journey of letting go of a negative self-image and the internal struggle to matter, loving and honoring the now you, and embracing the process of all you're becoming. This movement started for me back in 2016 as I realized my overarching theme in life was all about being brave. My goal is to help aspiring entrepreneurs dealing with chronic illness and or chronic fear to boldly live out their purpose by being healthy, by being divine, and by being brave. I'll be offering these few webinars and these free webinars on holistic wellness, physical, mental, and spiritual over the next few months. I'll probably be hosting 2 a month, one on wellness and one on business development, finances, and all of that. So I'll be sure to keep you posted and be sending out these emails. If you haven't done so already, you can visit my website, chantelhampton.com. That's probably how you got this link, but chantelhampton.com, and you can fill out the newsletter form and you can stay updated on any events that we have coming up. Okay. Awesome. Awesome. So let's meet our special guest. Tonight, I have a good friend with us who happens to be my financial advisor and strategist. His name is Sean Ragland. I met Sean through a childhood friend of mine who has ties with the NBA, and she connected us after I told her that I felt I needed to urgently take my money out of my 401k last year. It was at the peak of the pandemic, and I just felt deep down and I was like, I think I need to pull this money out. So she immediately told me, you need to speak to my husband and I's financial strategist and advisor. So she connected me with Sean. Actually, she waited a year before she did it, but she connected me with Sean earlier this year. And he's been diligently educating not only me, but my mom on the financial industry and the wisest way to preserve our money as we build wealth as well. So Sean has been an entrepreneur in the financial services industry since 1996. He was originally recruited in the industry by a patient of his while working in physical therapy. Sean Ragland started his financial practice in Cerritos, California, after becoming inspired by his own personal experience as a client. His passion for education and the empowerment of families who had been neglected, overlooked, or misrepresented by the financial industry fueled his passion. His desire for helping clients with retirement and financial needs now spans across numerous states and literally around the world. So if we can just welcome Sean, if you want to clap or whatever, you can use your little emojis in the background.
Thank you, thank you.
Welcome, Sean. I'm
Thank
going
you,
to stop sharing
Chantel.
my screen and I'll let you share yours.
Okay, fantastic. Can you hear me okay, first of all?
Yes.
Okay, good. Well, first of all, thank you for that great introduction. I'm very humbled and honored to be part of this movement that you've created, and I'm excited to be here tonight. And obviously, you've become a dear friend of mine, along with your mom and others. And it's just once again, without exception, an honor to be here.
Thank
And
you so
hopefully,
much.
I'm going to do my best to share some insightful information for you. Over the last 25 years, it's crazy to consider I've been doing this 25 years. I've seen people all across the gamut, from people that are of the ultra wealthy to those that are barely making ends meet, trying to figure out how to, take two pennies and rub them together. So hopefully it makes $1 at some point. And no matter where someone finds themselves in the scope of life, when it comes to finances, I believe tonight you're going to be impacted. I believe tonight, if you follow what, again, Chantel just has laid out for you, you're hopefully going to get some information that you can take back and not only become financially healthy, which is the objective of tonight, but to truly live a life that you desire. At the end of the day, it's about lifestyle as far as I'm concerned. Just a little bit about me, as Chantel shared this with you. This is very personal for me. You see, at the end of the day, the reason why I left my practice of medicine and physical therapy, which I loved, by the way. I loved being in sports medicine, which is what I came from. As an ex wannabe athlete, I got into sports medicine mainly because my father, who ran a sports medicine clinic at a major hospital there in Laguna Beach, California, had advisors that they were working with when I was a child. You see, we had lived a pretty comfortable life. And yes, I'm an only child, so leave me alone. I'm spoiled. It was wonderful growing up. But that all being the case, it came to a very scary, abrupt end when I was about 13 years old, when my parents' advisors had taken advantage of my parents to the point where I walked to my mom as she literally attempted to end her life. She cut both her hands and literally tried to take her life because they lost their savings, their retirement account, their marriage. We lost our home. We lost everything. Now, being 13 years old, I really didn't understand what was going on. All I knew was our world was turned upside down. And again, for the next number of years, we lived the life where we went from this opulent life, living on a beachfront property there in Laguna Beach, to living in a home that was right next to the 5 freeway. It was still a home. So as far as I was concerned, I was comfortable and happy. But I watched my parents fight over money almost every day of my life from that point forward, to the point where they separated and they were no longer ever together, even though I would argue our family was the Beaver Cleaver family, if you remember that show. I might be dating myself. But anyways, I digress. The point of the matter is, when I got out of college and got in my first job, I had a patient of mine, and he introduced me to the company, as was said earlier, but it was kind of a funny situation. I sat there through a meeting where I had no clue how money really worked. Even though I'd gone to high school, I went to college, I did all those things, I did everything I was told to do. No one ever taught me in high school or college how money worked. Did they teach you? Was there a class on how to grow your money, how to protect your money, how to save money off of taxes? Yeah, I had an economics class that I failed twice, which is kind of funny that I do this now for a living. I wish I can find my instructor. I would love to tell him what I'm doing. That would be kind of a comical conversation. But the point of the matter is, I didn't have those classes, but I was actually wishing I always had one because of what happened to my parents. Now, again, I was watching a patient of mine walk on a treadmill, which, if you ever had to watch someone walk on a treadmill, you know that is a very boring job, right? And I remember going back to my office, grabbing my 401k statement from a stack of mail, trying to just waste time reading my 401k statement. And the funny thing was, my patient wasn't a financial educator just like I am today. And he started asking me questions about my 401k that I had no clue how to answer. Like many people that I would meet with, they really don't even know how to read their statement. When I try to read my statement back then, I knew 2 words: beginning balance and ending balance. Everything else could have been Chinese as far as I was concerned. But he keeps asking me these questions. And finally I turned to him, I said, I didn't know. And he says, well, gosh, you're a young man. And mind you, I'm 23, 24 years old, right out of school. Even though I was so young, I knew I had to save money because what happened to my parents. But again, interesting enough, he asked me questions like, do you have other investments like stocks or bonds or mutual funds or annuities or CDs? Now, I didn't know what most of those were, but I recognized one of them, and I got excited because I was a little embarrassed that I had no clue how to read my statement or could answer his questions. When he talked a little bit about the idea of CDs, I said, yeah, I got a lot of them. And I mentioned that I had 300 to 400 CDs. I used to be a DJ. Why are you asking about my big investment? You see, he was talking about not my compact disc collection. Remember, this is in 1996, and we went from vinyl, believe it or not, I used to scratch on vinyl, to this new technology called CDs, and I had hundreds of them. And when he asked if I had investments, I thought he was talking about my investment in the music. Well, the guy starts laughing so hard because he was talking about my bank collection, my certificate deposits, that he falls off the treadmill because he misses a step, flies off the back, and starts rolling, which I got to admit, you're going to think I'm a monster, but it was the funniest thing I think I've ever seen. In fact, if you want to laugh tonight, Google treadmill fails, and you're going to see probably my patient, or at least what it looked like. Long story made short, he invites me to a seminar, an in-person seminar, where they talked about some of the things I'm going to discuss tonight. And those things impacted me in a way where I was like, wow, why doesn't everybody know this? Why wasn't I taught this in college? Why wasn't my parents told this? Even though my parents were fortunate to make enough money as a doctor that they had advisors, but they were misled. And I would argue after now 25 years, almost a decade or multiple decades now, that I've seen so many people that even have advisors maybe have been misled because they just don't know what they don't know. But even worse, if you haven't been contacted by an advisor, you may have been neglected and overlooked. And again, tonight, hopefully we're going to teach you some conversations of how to become brave. Now, by the way, as I look at my screen here, I notice brave evolution. At the end of the day, I think that was a great testimony to what we're doing here today. I hope that you could be brave in the ideas of realizing that your future is in front of you. It's not behind you, but it does take being brave and looking into the future. So I'd like to just first and foremost say, for those of you that are here tonight, thank you for being here. We know, and at least I know, as I have had the honor of speaking around the globe now, being able to come to a meeting at night after work sometimes is a commitment in of itself. In fact, I would argue it's an investment. I don't believe as an investment advisor that our greatest assets are our money, our cars, our homes, the things we own. It's our time. And the fact that you're investing your time with us tonight, I take it as a huge honor and a responsibility to deliver a message to you that hopefully will get you to act and move at the end of the day. So again, I want to start off by saying thank you for being here. Now, a few disclosures and disclaimers, and I have to do this as a financial person because I do hold multiple licenses. And I want you to understand tonight in particular, I'm not gonna share concepts, or I'm not here to solicit securities or insurances, or I'm not going to talk about particular investment concepts. So don't ask me what stock pick to choose right now, or is Bitcoin the best thing to go in? I'm not going to get into specifics because of the forum. I'd have to do that on an individual basis. But most importantly, I'm going to focus mostly on just, again, an educational conversation to give you enough information for you to be able to say, gosh, maybe I should invest some more time. That is my hope. And just know, though, within the next, again, I'm not going to spend an hour. Normally, I do this in about a 2-hour session, but I also know over Zoom, the ability to have someone's attention kind of stops at about maybe 30 to 40 minutes tops. Hopefully, I can have some entertaining conversations that keep you intrigued and keep you entertained. And by the way, if we are talking about your money, you might want to just make sure you stay in tuned and intrigued. And I'm going to do my best to make it fun and exciting. But just know you're not going to learn everything tonight. But on that notion, as was said earlier, we are open to having ongoing conversations. I'm a financial educator. And at the end of the day, I'm working with Chantel and others to teach people how to teach others how to become wealthy. So with that said in mind, let's get right into it. Now, I think it's important to identify some realities. And, a lot of you, and I haven't had a chance to meet all of you, and hopefully someday I'll get a chance to meet with you on a one-on-one basis and we can have a discussion. But I don't think we have to look too far to recognize our country and individuals are facing some major challenges. This last couple of years have been difficult at best. I mean, who would have thought we would have gone through a pandemic and the world would have shut down? And sometimes we have to also identify reality. And so the moment of truth is ask yourselves these questions. Do you have some hard times with bills or credit cards? I know tons of people that have faced foreclosures or worse, they were already kicked out of their home. Have you prepared for an emergency like a pandemic? What if something happens? What about if you have kids? Whatever it may be, investments, savings, etc. I mean, by the way, if you look at the media, does it get you nervous? I mean, I don't know about you, but if you look at the news today, there's not a lot of positive news. In fact, I won't pick on CNN too much, but they are the constant negative news network. At least that's what I call them. I mean, you can't find too much exciting things on CNN or MSN or Fox or whatever. The reality is the news loves fear. Yes or no? The end of the day, most of the things you learn or listen to, and that's the scary part, are you learning something from the news or are you listening to something that's proposing you to learn something that is true? Or is it based upon fear, false evidence that appears real? Yes, last year, this was the headline. In fact, today, just so you know, at 6:19, I pulled this off my stock app on my Apple iPhone and I put it up there. You don't have to go far to recognize a lot of scary things going on. And by the way, it's good to take note of some of the things that are happening, and we're going to address this idea. And in fact, I will make a note. If you have money in investments without MCP, write that in your notes. And by the way, I do hope you have notes today. I'm going to speak really fast. I'm going to give you little bit points, and hopefully you're going to take some notes because you're going to want to invest your time into these concepts, but you're going to want to get MCP so that today you didn't lose 23 points on your money. By the way, and I'll talk about the calamities later, but the reality is if we go back over time, 30, 40, 50 years, the headlines are the same, aren't they? By the way, different generations, different eras. But man, if you just look at Time Magazine, it's always about blah, blah, blah. So here's my point, and back to why we're here today and why I'm so honored to be with Chantel. And man, I just love this woman and her mission and cause to help people become brave. Because I will tell you, you need to be brave in the light that we're in right now. And you got to look to the light. I won't get it into the spiritual conversation, although I'll come back Sunday and maybe I will. That's my calling. I believe this is my pulpit. I'm not a pastor, but sometimes I feel like I am. But at the end of the day, the noise of the future is bright if you believe in it. Just take a deep breath. Don't listen to CNN. Did I say that again? Anyways, I digress. Just look at what the ultra wealthy people have been doing. And maybe if you have the right vehicles and the right information and the right advice, and you listen to your heart, you're going to have a great future. And I would argue you're going to have a great future if you make it a great future. It starts with you. So with that said in mind, I'm going to give you 9 tips. They're actually going to come in the idea of blind spots. And I hope that you would write these few down. And we're going to start off with just some right in the face, right in the conversations of things you could take back and hopefully put into action. Again, these are tips, but they're also what most people have as a blind spot. And what's a blind spot? Something that you don't know of, that you don't see. I would tell you over the last number of years, it's the things that people don't know, that they don't know, that hurt them. And so again, it should be simple to consider that number one, most people should write down their goals. I hear people a lot of times when I meet with them, because I do an analysis, we do a financial needs analysis with all of our clients. And we start off with, what are your goals? And I say, what are your written goals? What do you have down on paper? And they're like, well, I want to be rich. Okay. Well, how much? By when? At what point? At what time? How are you going to get there? And they're like, I don't know. I'm like, well, then you're never going to be rich. Concept. So number one, get some written goals. Make sure they're specific, measurable, attainable. Do you know your retirement goal if it's retirement? Do you know exactly how much you're going to need for your kids' education, if it's your kids' education or whatever it is? Maybe you just want to buy a new Mustang. I don't know. Write it down and go drive the darn thing and have a written goal to it. Number one tip. Number two, once you have your goal, find some guidance. Get some professional guidance, not the neighbor that seems like he has it all together because they have really good, YouTube or Facebook or Instagram channels, and they may or may not be. Get some professional advice. Unfortunately, most people, in fact, 64%, as you see here, have never had any advice when it comes to, in particular, money. Why? Unfortunately, the industry focuses on the wealthy. And that's one of the unique things about our firm and our company, working with Chantel and others. We focus on everybody. Number three, it should go without saying, but don't spend too much. Don't spend more than you make. I know, wow, like really? Like you have to tell me that? I know, but I just want to remind you, because most people like me, before I got really involved in this conversation, I just like to spend money. And I don't know, maybe I have girl jeans, but I love shoes. When they have a 50% off at Nordstrom's, man, guess what? It just seems like I'm saving money. No, you're not. You're buying shoes you don't need. I won't go down that rabbit hole, but anyways, you get my point. Try to spend money based upon a budget. Now, do you have a budget? Have you done a financial analysis? And if you haven't, again, get with someone, if not us, and we'll help you establish that. Now we're getting into the real fun ones. Number four, I'm going to spend time tonight on this one. Last week, I spent a couple days in Las Vegas in a summit with 36 of the leading financial advisors in the country. In fact, 4 of the advisors that were there sit on the House and Ways and Means Committee at the United States Senate and Congress. And they were talking about some things that are happening in our country. And if you don't know, because by the way, they only work with the ultra wealthy. I was in a group of advisors where their minimum was $250 million before you would get their attention. That was their minimums. I was honored to be invited to that party. And taxes is going to be a major issue if it's not already an issue as of today. And we're going to talk a lot more about that. Bottom line, tip number 4, you got to learn how to find the right tax vehicles, because if you don't, most of your wealth will go to Uncle Sam. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm Uncle Sam's worst nephew. I don't like Uncle Sam. He is not my favorite uncle. I don't know about you, but taxes is your silent partner in the game of life called being an American. But interesting enough, there are legal ways to still, as of today, even after the proposed legislations that I'll speak to a little bit later on, that is happening, whether you like it or not, and this is not political, there's an opportunity to be able to help you save money on some of your taxes. You got to understand taxes. Now, number 5, and you're starting to hear this in the news and the media if you're listening to it, but you don't have to listen to the news. Just go to your grocery store and you're recognizing that there's this thing called inflation that's coming up. We've talked about it for a while, but we haven't seen it in most of our lifetimes. In the last 20 to 30 years, we haven't seen inflation like it was, but you're starting to see it now. Today, I filled up gas, and what cost me about $50 last week cost me well over $100. In fact, the gas pump stopped at $100. A couple weeks ago, actually a couple months ago, I was at about $50. Yes, I drive a big gas guzzling truck. That all being the case, inflation's coming up. What's inflation? Rising cost of living. In fact, here's your tip for number 5. If you don't get an after-tax rate of return that's greater than inflation, you are losing money. Let me say that slower so that you can write that down. You must get an after-tax rate of return that is greater than inflation. And if you don't, you are losing money. And I'm going to come back to that in a second with some more diagrams. The bottom line, the cost of living is going up. It's inevitable, especially as of recent, and especially if our current administration gets all their ways, inflation is going to go up. And it's not just going to affect the ultra wealthy, it's going to affect everybody. And you're already probably feeling it and seeing it. In fact, if I had a way to listen to you, I'd ask, how many of you feel like cost of living has gone up since the last, I don't know, month? I'd probably say all of you. In fact, in the chat box, just to make sure you're aware, if you think inflation is going to go up, go ahead and put a number 1 in the chat box. Let's see if you're awake. Not sure, because I can't see all of you. I see Sam and Vanessa. I see a couple ones there. Yep. I'm glad we're on the same page. And if we're not, Just go to the grocery store next week and buy a steak. I bought a steak last week and I almost choked on it because of the cost. I'm like, oh my God. Anyways, I digress. Number 6. And by the way, I hope it's okay. We have some fun. I'm kind of kooky and weird at times, but I try to make economics fun and exciting, which that's a difficult topic. That's why I failed the class twice. So I hope you don't get too taken back by some of my jokes. My friends would be like, man, you are not funny, Sean. I'm like, well, I think I'm funny, so that's on you. But anyways, once again, I digress. Number 6 tip. Most people flat out simply point kind of back to the other one. If we spend too much, we save too little. Again, most people have more month at the end of the month than paycheck. We should be saving at a minimum, it's biblical, at least 10% of your income. You should, I think, give to the church through a tithe, and 10% you should pay yourself before all of your other bills, expenses, and lifestyle. Unfortunately, more than 50% of us have no savings. When I say 50%, it's really a heck of a lot more than that. More than 50% of the population in America have very little to no savings because they spend every dime on a fancy iPhone 1675. I don't know if that's the new model out right now, but it seems like every year you got to spend $1,000 on a phone. Like what? Anyways, you get my point. We just save too little, and worse, they don't know where to save. And they're relying upon other things like Social Security or the government for your future. Again, I hope that by the time I'm done tonight, you're not going to rely upon Social Security. Now, especially if you're under 45 years old. Again, I was at this committee a couple of weeks ago, or last week to be exact, and Social Security is going to have some issues, regardless of who's elected the next 5 to 20 years. The reality is the math has failed, and we'll talk about that a little bit if we have the time. The reality is you got to focus your plans on your future. And oh, by the way, if you are in the retirement red zone, again, you're over 50 years old. A lot of people are retiring too soon because they'd said enough is enough. Do you have the right numbers? Have you done an analysis? Again, tip number 7 is make sure you have it fully planned out. And I go back to the first couple tips. Make sure you've planned it out with someone that's been there before. Don't wing it, because a lot of people are getting into retirement because they think they have the math done, but they forget about certain things that are going to affect them because they've never been there before. I would encourage you to meet with a professional, whether it's us, at least someone. Make sure you plan that out. And lastly, don't wait. I started the night by talking about your investment of time. Time is money. The number 1 tip I could give you is don't wait till tomorrow. Sounds like a commercial, like back in the 80s. There is no tomorrow. There is no tomorrow. It's true. You got to start saving now. In fact, just take a look at the math here. This gives you a simplified version. And I have another picture that I'm not going to show tonight for time's sake. But man, if you waited to start saving money 5, 10 years, the same amount of money to be able to create the same amount of income goes up substantially. In other words, the sooner you start saving, the less you have to save to create a nest egg that'd be worthy of a good retirement. Now, by the way, if you are behind the 8 ball and you started too late, just start. Some of you say, well, it's too late to start. There's no such thing. You just got to start. You got to deal with this stuff head on and make this urgent. I used to meet with doctors all the time. They say, I'm too busy. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're too busy to make sure your future's protected and you have enough money for your future? Then stop working. I mean, again, it's a crazy conversation to consider that people put other things than their future, like, I don't know, The Voice. Now, I agree The Voice is important. I think you should watch The Voice, but maybe make your future as important as your best show that you watch on TV or going out for a drink or whatever. Just invest your time, because procrastination is going to hurt you. You see, at the end of the day, again, I like pictures. The biggest enemies of your money really is risk, but it can be controlled. We're going to talk about that. It's also inflation. I already mentioned it. The rising cost of living, you have to get a good return on your money. And you got to get taxes in check. And we could help you find great tax shelters. And if you get time on your side and you get the discipline to start and continue, I'm here to tell you, as a guy that lost everything, you too could become wealthy with the right information and the right vehicles. Again, write this formula or take a screenshot on the right. It's real simple. You take money, however much it is, you add time to it, you add your rate of return, the interest that you're earning on it, but then when you inflation, whatever it is, and the taxes you pay, that's your wealth. So again, just think of that formula when you think about what you're going to do into the future, because that should help you guide yourself on how to get some things. And what's the most important part? Rate of return and the idea of taxes and how to pay less on that, but getting started. So let's get into that. Let's talk about future retirement. Let's talk about what the past had relied upon. It used to be that Social Security, pension accounts, and savings, they called it the three pillars of security, was going to be what the golden years were made up of. And you get your golden watch, which, by the way, I never understood why you got a golden watch when you retired. Shouldn't you get a watch when you start working? Anyways, again, I get distracted by my own thoughts there. You get the point. By the way, pensions in this day and age has been replaced by Section 401k of the Internal Revenue Code. Once again, do you know how to read it? Your statement, that is, if you got one. Do you understand the pros and cons? If you don't, I'm going to take you down a journey on that here tonight, because you better be aware of the pros and the cons that Section 401k provides for people, because it is the most popular savings vehicle in America. Again, Social Security, well, that really should be social insecurity. It's going broke, folks. And again, I'm going to share something with you in a quick second to prove it. It's not from me, it's from the government themselves. And personal savings in America, unfortunately, as we've already said, it's an up and down yo-yo. It's like a pogo stick. You have some money, the next thing, the new iPhone comes out. I keep picking on iPhone, or whatever it is that you want to buy. Those shoes at Nordstrom's. I know, I got it. The reality is savings is a lost art form in America. And unfortunately, that creates a major challenge for most people. So what's left? In fact, if any one of those stools or legs on the stool is broken, it's kind of hard to sit there comfortably. Well, again, some of those stools are broken. So what are the richest people in America doing? How many know this guy? Have you ever heard of Warren Buffett? Just nod your head, say yes, hallelujah, put number one in the box, or number two even. Well, I bet you all do, right? He's a good friend of mine. I think he's a friend of mine because I read all of his material. So as far as I'm concerned, he's my friend. He doesn't really know who the hell I am, but I know who he is. So he's my friend. By the way, hi, my name is Sean. I'm your friend. I don't know you, but as far as I'm concerned, you're my friend. So is he. Okay, I'm kind of crazy, I know. But Warren Buffett talks about the ideas of becoming wealthy in America because he's one of the wealthiest persons in the world. And part of that has some basic philosophies. Number one philosophy of the ultra wealthy is getting people's money to work harder for them than they're working for it. And at the end of the day, what happens is that, and I would like to impose upon you this formula, that if you can learn the rule of 72 and how investments work, you can start to win the money game. And this talks about the rate of return. Now, Albert Einstein, again, another friend of mine, because I talk about him every day, had a formula. He says, if you take the interest rate that you are earning or paying and you divide it into the number 72, it will equal approximately how many years it takes for a dollar to turn into $2, and vice versa, and double accordingly. So let's apply that for a quick second. Now, let's say you had $1,000 and you put your money into let's say some kind of account that was earning 5%. Well, 5% into 72, as you do your math, by the time 70 years comes down, you would have over $30,000 invested. That's how fast money would grow and accumulate and double. Now, by the way, are you getting 5% at your local bank right now? See, I heard this the other day. I had a client of mine that was in Bank of America because they were Puerto Rican, and they were talking about how they have the platinum savings account. I said, wow, you got the platinum savings account. What's your interest rate? They're like, well, I don't know. It's better than the standard interest rate. I'm going to say, well, let's take a look. You know what the platinum savings account was at Bank of America? Their rate of return, the interest rate that they were earning, it was 0.05%. The standard interest rate was 0.01%. Now, by the way, if you have a Wells Fargo account like I have one, their account is 0.01%. Real quick, let's go ahead and divide that into 72. It's guaranteed. It's FDIC insured. I know. 0.01 is 7,200 years, ladies and gentlemen. Go ahead, add that to your current age, and you can come back and pick up $2. How many of you are excited about that? I don't know about you, but I'm dead in 7,200 years. I don't care how good I look at 50. You understand what I'm talking about? But by the way, where do most people go after they get their savings account at their bank? They get their credit card. They get their student loan. They get their bank account. At least I did at Wells Fargo. I know when I went through this process the first time, I had a credit card at Wells Fargo. I had my student loans at Wells Fargo. I had my mortgage at Wells Fargo. I had my car note at Wells Fargo. Why? Because that's where I bank. And it was convenient to transfer money from my savings and checking to all these other places. But what was the interest rate? 5, 10%? In fact, take a look at that. Same amount of money, same $1,000 invested, the difference between 5 and 10% over time. Look at 12%. By the way, I remember thinking 10 and 12%. Do you think that's going to be a big difference? Same $1,000, the same time period? Most people say, nah, no big deal. But if you were to apply the rule of 72, it's a huge deal. Would you like to have the extra $2 million in your pocket? Have you ever wondered why all beautiful buildings in all cities are kind of banks and insurance companies, investment houses? Again, I lived in Atlanta for a while. The best buildings was Wells Fargo, BB&T, SunTrust. I lived in LA for a while. Guess what it was? Bank of America. You get my point. Why? Because they learned how to win the money game. Our idea is making sure that you know how to win the money game. What if we can show you how to get an average of 10 to 12% return on your money with no potential loss? You see, if I was to put it in a picture form, see, most people have their money in a savings account, some type of bank account, and it's fixed. It's guaranteed by the bank, yeah, but it's like a flat line. And I picture a bank account from a picture perspective, kind of like an EKG flat line. And if your EKG looks like the fixed portfolio, you're dead. Once again, 70 to 100 years it takes for a dollar to double at the Wells Fargo Bank of America. Now, if you get into the stock market, the variable market, it's called the equity market, the market goes up and the market goes down. Now, by the way, that is how you get a 12% average rate of return. If I had time, I would show you the last 80-year track record, or even the last 15-year track record, or even the last 10-year track record. You've actually averaged about 12%. But what if there were a way to do what Warren Buffett talks about and get your money indexed? I mean, rather have the ups of the market, but have some way to lock in the gains where there's no loss. I mean, if you had to choose A, B, or C, A was fixed, B is variable, up and down, where you may lose money from time to time, or C is where you have the ups, but none of the losses. Does that sound better? I think most of you would say C. In fact, if you would rather have C, go ahead and throw that in the chat box just so I can know that you're alive and you're listening and you don't think I'm too crazy. C all day long and Sunday, right? I know. Folks, that's what we're talking about. You got to learn how to get those kinds of options. Let's continue on from that. And I wish we had more time to talk about it. That's the other tip. Find yourself MCP, and that stands for Market Correction Protection. Let me back up. Market Correction Protection means you get an index strategy for your money. And if you don't know how to get it, please get back with Chantel or myself or others. Fill out the survey, and we'll be more than happy to send you information on how to get your money indexed. It's important, more than I can express. But now let's spend the last 10 or so minutes, because I only have about 10 more minutes as far as I'm concerned. I want to get you out of here in a proper time because my butt's starting to hurt. So if my butt's hurting, your butt's probably going to hurt. And I'm sitting in a very uncomfortable stool for this reason. When I do presentations, I let my butt determine how long I'm going. It's kind of, anyways, well, I don't know why I told you that. See, I told you I'm weird. Chantel's never going to have me back. And part of the reason why I'm having fun with the pain is because the biggest pain you're going to have, ladies and gentlemen, if you hear me of anything I said tonight, is going to be taxes. Once again, I just got back from a leveled meeting with 30 of the best advisors in the country, and taxes was the #1 topic. Everything we knew about how we get taxed is going to change. I mean, is it true? When you make money, don't they tax it? I mean, what is FICA? Have you ever seen FICA in your paycheck? I always wonder what FICA stood for when I used to get a paycheck. Does anyone know what FICA stands for? Anyone? Put in your chat box if you know what it stands for. If you don't, for sake of time, let me just tell you what it stands for. Funds I can't access. It's a joke, but I mean, it's true, right? Because when they take your money from you, do you get to get it back sometimes? No. By the way, when you spend money, do you know there's sales tax? You know, when you save money, they're going to be increasing capital gains tax to all people. And by the way, when you die, this is what's so gross and it's changing completely. When you die, there's another tax. In fact, it's a bigger tax that for some is worse than all of them. In fact, for some, even when you're 6 feet under the ground and you think your family's going to get what they deserve, your hard-earned money, Uncle Sam comes in and takes it. Have you ever seen an estate sale before? 9 months from the date of your death that you have to pay monies on your estate. And the estate amount is going to change come December 31st. And the way to protect it has completely changed. It's not just about trust anymore. I was meeting with my girlfriend the other day, and she has some family situations, and I tried to get her to talk to her family about their estate because what they thought was protected is not. Unfortunately, again, when it talks about wealth planning, let me make it simple. See, when you have money in a savings account, a mutual fund, a stock portfolio, your checking account, anytime it makes money, when you put money into it, there's no tax benefit. I call that a red stopping block. Red means bad, by the way. When it makes money, you get taxed on the gains. When you pull the money out, you may have to pay taxes on it because it has gains. And when you transfer it, meaning when you die, guess what? Even in all those accounts, there could be additional taxes. Now, by the way, a few years ago, back around the 80s or so, there was a program called an annuity that came out that it's an insurance contract that if you make an agreement with an insurance contract, the contributions aren't tax deductible, but the money could be tax deferred. And as it grows, money makes more money, kind of like a snowball going down a hill. That's what tax deferral looks like, if you think it in your mind's eye. The challenge is when you pull the money out, the gains is taxed. And when you transfer the money, it is also potentially taxed. By the way, that's what IRAs began. An IRA, if you've heard of that before, is an individual retirement account or individual retirement annuity, where you also get a tax deduction on the contribution. Not to go down that rabbit hole too much, but 2 green circles are much better than 1, and 1 is much better than none. Let's keep it simple, right? And at the end of the day, if you don't have tax deferral, you're missing out on millions of dollars. Don't believe me? Let me show you. Simple little bar trick. If you took $1 and doubled it 20 times, in this case, we're talking in this case 18 times, whether it be 18 times, 18 years, whatever, $1 doubled 18 times in a 28% tax bracket, you're going to have 12 grand. If you had $1 doubled 20 times and you didn't have tax deferral, you'd have over $250,000. Is that crazy? That's tax deferral. Oh, by the way, if you took it out 20 years, you know the difference? You'd have $26,000 in your taxable account. You'd have over $1 million in a tax deferred account. I know, it's hard to believe, but that's how people get wealthy. You get people and you look at taxes. Remember I said taxes is a very important commodity, something to consider. So again, let's talk about what the most popular tax deferred account is that some of you may have. And again, most of it comes in the form of an IRA or your 401k at work or a 403b or a pension account or a TSA or a TSP. They're all the same damn thing, just so you know. What it does is, the pros is when you put money in, you get tax deductions, tax deferred growth. In fact, some companies, if they still give you a matching, and people get so excited about that. Susie Orman, Dave Ramsey, and others would tell you, max out your 401k. The challenge with them is when you pull the seed and the harvest out, now you have to pay taxes on it, and the taxes on 401ks and qualified plans may be changing. That's part of the tax code that has been proposed in our country's government, where they're going to come after people's 401k. And when you pull the money out, you may be paying more in taxes than you ever saved. And oh, by the way, if you die with an overstuffed 401k or IRA, you don't do the math, your heirs can get a little as 10 to 15 cents of the last dollar you saved. Now there's some benefits, but let's go through the math real quick. Let me show you some simplified math. And again, I got to go through this really fast because I'm actually running out of time. And I know you're gonna be like, a little bit more, and I'm going to be committed to my time commitment. The reality is, let me just show you some simple math of how the benefits work. If you were to put money into your 401k, let's say $250 a month, that's $3,000 a year. That's taken off your pre-tax contribution, means it's taken off your adjusted gross income. What does that mean in English? If you were paying $30,000, if you made $30,000, you're only going to be paying taxes on $27,000 because you're going to subtract your $3,000 a year from your adjusted gross income. Now, if you were at a 30% marginal tax bracket, no one is ever at exactly 30%. You might be at some portion of it between your state and federal taxes, but for simplicity's sake of math, let's say it was 30%. your deduction would give you a $900 benefit where you got a $900 refund, or you get $900 you don't have to pay in taxes at the end of the year. And it sounds wonderful. That's why Susie Orman and Dave Ramsey and your CPA and your accountants want you to max these out, because you save money today. And it's true. In fact, if you did that over a working lifetime of, say, a 30-year career, you got to save $27,000. Now, if you took that $250,000 or $30,000 a year and you got it invested in a tax deferred account, and I'm going to use a very aggressive return, like 12%, like what is done for the last 80 years, if you have the right investments, especially if you have market correction protection, you'd actually have $882,000 to be exact. I'm going to round up to 900,000. That's the good news. And oh, by the way, if you got matching, you might have double the money. And if you had $1.8 million, woohoo, that's awesome. But the seed and the harvest now must be taxed. Let's say you use your income. You pull out 10% for income off your investment. That's $90,000 of income you got to pay taxes on. Now, by the way, if the tax codes that are proposed in our country's government today are passed, you're going to be at a much higher tax bracket because you have to pay taxes at ordinary income rates. But let's just say somehow mysteriously over the next 30 years, you're at the same tax bracket. You pay 30% in taxes. Wait a minute, 30% on your first year in retirement of $90,000, that's $27,000 of tax. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you just wiped out your entire 30 years of tax savings your first year in retirement. Oh, by the way, if you live 20 more years in retirement, you're paying back $500,000 to save less than 27. I'd be willing to give back the $900 a year to keep all $27,000. By the way, if you have a matching, you're at a higher tax bracket guaranteed. You're just paying all that money back to the government. Matching doesn't normally go to you unless you're 40 years old or 50 and you have no money. Then take all the matching you can get. In fact, there's a window of opportunity that if you need your money out prior to 59.5, and a lot of people found this out last year when they needed their money, there may be a 10% early withdrawal penalty, but there's also a 50% penalty if you don't take the money out in the proper time frame. It's called an RMD. By the way, it used to be 70.5. Now it's 72. But if you reach age 72 and you have not withdrawn your money and paid your taxes, there is a 50% penalty. Did you know about that? I didn't when I had one. You see, I remember hearing that going, come on, no way. What are you talking about? Write it down. Ask Uncle Google. Say, hey, Google, what's RMD penalty? And it'll tell you RMD penalty is a 50% penalty, regardless if you take the money out. 50%, 50. I don't know about you, but I don't want to pay 50. It's like Eddie Murphy. Heck no. Is there a way to offset that? Yes. In fact, it even gets worse. If you have a retirement account, 401k, IRA, KEO, SEP, 403b, TSP, it also will affect your Social Security if you still get it. In fact, if you have an IRA, 401k, and you don't do the math, it could affect your Social Security up to an 85% tax on your Social Security. Did you know that? And if you didn't, I'm glad Chantel has invited you here today. See, again, there are alternatives. Now, by the way, what do you mean there's this 85%? Please take a screenshot here. I'm just going to glance and flash some screens on here for you because I'm literally out of time. But at the end of the day, Social Security on their website, ssa.gov.policy, take a screenshot. It talks about this thing called a provisional income, and how if you have over, again, a certain income bracket, and what's that certain income bracket? $34,000 as a single person or $44,000 of income as a married person, you subject your Social Security tax to up to 85%. By the way, take the website. Don't believe me. Go on the website. Go on to the government. You trust the government, right? Don't trust me. I know I'm some crazy man. The reality is when I heard this stuff, I'm like, no way. What do you mean? How's it work? Again, the stuff you see online will teach you to put it in this simple idea of a bucket. Do you have monies in buckets? Do those buckets add up to certain income? It's called provisional income. If those hit certain thresholds, you're subject to those taxes. The reality is, by the way, if you want to determine if you're going to be subject to that, once again, take this website. Here's my gift to you. Go on to socialsecurityintelligence.com and it'll tell you exactly what you're looking at. You can plug it in. It's a great software program that is somewhat fairly easy to use. And if you need assistance, reach out to Chantel or myself and let's do a survey and we'll help you out with it. The question always comes up as I finish this in our questions and answers. Well, what's the single biggest contributor to Social Security being taxed? And it's sad. It's doing what everyone was taught to do, having too much money in your 401k or IRA. How crazy was that? You see, at the end of the day, if you have a tax deferred account and don't have it in the right kind of account, all you're doing is you're increasing your taxes. And it's going to get worse come December 31st of 2021. I'm here to tell you that. We just got out of the meetings. The reality is, do you think taxes in our country are going to be the higher, the same, or maybe lower? Again, folks, I can't determine that right now, but again, there's already laws and proposals in place where already our tax codes have gone up. And again, the proposals that are on Capitol Hill right now at the Ways and Means Committee, I meet and I work with four of the people that are on that committee. They report to us and I'm part of their organization. They're reporting that these are about to happen, whether you like it or not. And it's not about if you make 400,000 or more, it's going to affect every single person. Again, if you would take this website down, could we go back to marginal tax bracket into the 90 percentile? We've been there before. We're at the lowest tax bracket we've ever had. So is it really smart to defer your taxes till later? See, again, if you think taxes in the future are going to be the same, don't follow the advice of getting money out of tax deferred accounts. But if you think it's going to be higher because of deficits and Medicare and Social Security and all that, you need to consider some other options. And as I wrap up, let me just give you the tease of it. There are other options. Instead of paying taxes on the seed or getting the deductions of the money that goes into a deductible and have a tax deduction, the seed and the harvest becomes taxable. What if we can show you how to have an after-tax contribution to an account that is tax exempt so the seed and the harvest is tax free? Let me say it another way. Let me make it more easy. If there was a way to have zero taxes instead of taxes on all of the growth, wouldn't that sound better? By the way, that's what a Roth IRA is, a Roth 401k is, or a CVLI, or a 7702 plan, or there's other vehicles, an FFIUL, an AIUL. Have you heard of those? I haven't. Once again, just to simplify it, would you like to pay taxes now, later on all of the growth, or potentially never? When you see tax-free together, to me, that just seems sexy and almost too good to be true, but it is true. They've been around for decades, and interesting enough, the tax legislation that has been proposed on the House that's in the Ways and Means Committee right now does not affect some of these accounts that I'm talking about, which is interesting to consider. But unfortunately, most people only know about the Roth, and there's too many strings attached. There are other vehicles that allow you to use a tax-advantaged, non-qualified retirement planning alternative, and it's all based upon tax code that came out, by the way, Section 7702 came out about 100 years ago. Section 401k was about in the 80s. Unfortunately, most people just don't know what they don't know. And as I conclude tonight, I hear this all the time. Why doesn't everyone know this? And I always like this first question. And listen to me real quick as I end today. What if all your life you thought something to be true? You found out it wasn't true. Let me say this again. Please listen to me. Look into my brown eyes. What if all your life you thought something to be true, you found out later it wasn't true? Wouldn't you want to know, like right away? You see, life is full of surprises. And unfortunately, sometimes people just don't know what they don't know. Again, unfortunately, when I do classes for CPAs and accountants, sometimes they just didn't know what they didn't know. And again, for the lack of vision, people perish. I love that statement. For the lack of vision when it comes to people's futures and their financial health and their well-being, you need the right information. It's kind of like this stick. It's just a stick. It depends on who looks at it. If a beaver looks at it, it looks like food. A caveman's going to keep him warm at night. That's a picture of Archimedes, so it's been told. And he uses that stick as a lever to move the world. How are you looking at things? Again, is your head in the sands and Uncle Sam's waiting for you? Again, most people's head is in the sand, and you're going to pay more in taxes than you've ever considered in your lifetime, and it's just going to get worse. But wait a minute, my accountant told me something, as they throw you out the door. Wait, I got an attorney. I got a financial advisor. Do they know what they don't know? Once again, I'm not saying that we're special, but we have a team of advisors that we work with to actually navigate the mindfalls that are out there. So I want to encourage you to get maybe tonight and take action. At the end of the day, information is only valuable if you take action on it. Knowledge is not powerful. You are smarter tonight, and you now know a little bit more than you did earlier today, but you have to apply the knowledge to make it powerful. I hate that statement to say knowledge is powerful. No, it's not. Only applied knowledge is powerful. What you do with this information is up to you. I would encourage you that you get together with a professional like we started out with. Whether it's with us or not, don't really care. I would love and be honored to help you. I and a team of our advisors that works with Chantel and others would be more than happy to help you navigate these challenges and issues, but get with someone and go through a proper plan. Develop a guideline. Make sure there's no pitfalls and holes and challenges. Make sure you know what your goals are and get them written down, and get educated. Do you want more education with us? We have an entire program for free where you can come and learn from me and others on how to manage this stuff for yourself. That's our idea. We want to teach you how to fish so you can go feed your family and future generations to come for generations to come, not just give you the fish. It's kind of a very important concept, and why I'm so honored to be part of this with Chantel. You're going to be offered a financial survey here in a little bit, and I'm going to encourage you to fill it out and ask deep questions like we start out with the program. And again, get back with someone, if not us, to help plan your future. Because at the end of the day, and I love this quote and I end on this, there's something that is more powerful than all the armies in the world, and that's an idea whose time has come. And the idea is that you should be wealthy, you should be healthy, and you should have a great lifestyle and enjoy it for whatever God gives you as time left on this planet. You're destined for greatness if you choose the right actions. And as we started out, if you're brave enough to get into action. And with that, Chantel, I'll turn it back over to you, and I'm grateful for the time.
Thank you so much, Sean. Thank you so much. That was awesome. If you all just want to, can unmute really quick and just say thank you if you enjoyed the information.
You're welcome.
Thank
You're
you
welcome.
so much. So just so you all are aware, I put the survey that Sean is speaking of, I put it in the chat. You can say thank you in the chat. Awesome. The survey that you can fill out is in the chat box. And you can set up a time to meet with Sean. There's an option for you to set up a complimentary session with him, just to talk with him. And like he said, he can kind of walk you through and give you some advice on how to prepare and how to plan. So please fill that out. This recording will be available for everyone that is on the mailing list, as well as everyone who registered for this meeting. So you can go back and listen again. If there was something you missed, if you have specific questions about something he mentioned, you can definitely take those notes and jot them down and then meet with him. I think it'll be very, very helpful for you. Again, thank you for coming out tonight. We are going to be respectful of your time and end right now because it's 8:00 on the dot. But I love you all, and I look forward to seeing you all again. 'Cause I know you are brave enough to stand.